Welcome to the DLA Pipers video stream from the International Climate Change Talks in Durban, South Africa on the 1st of December 2011. In the next few minutes, I will be talking about international aviation and the Kyoto Protocol, the dynamics of these international climate change negotiations, new market mechanisms, and the clean development mechanism. As we reported from the first day of the conference, India has proposed to adopt in the agenda a point to discuss unilateral trade measures, which really was targeted at discussing aviation. As most of you know, aviation is captured, or international aviation is captured by the European Union Emissions Trading Scheme, starting from the 1st of January 2012, so in exactly 1 month. And the host countries of some air carriers, for example, the US, India, and China, were actually not too happy about that and complained to the EU that they believe this is either infringement of international trade treaties or at least something that should be addressed in an international treaty and not by European legislation. However, this was not in the past part of a discussion of under the UNFCCC or the Kyoto Protocol umbrella, because international aviation emissions were not captured by the Kyoto Protocol. And this was probably a good thing, because the last thing we need here in Durban is more complications in the international negotiations. However, now we find it on the agenda. The problem that this has and the impact this has on international negotiations and the dynamics here is that we don't have much time. We have about 2 weeks, and we talked about this, to address maybe around 50 issues. And every additional issue and every additional contentious issue will take time away from other areas where people had made progress over the last year or two, and where we were hoping we can actually find a solution here in Durban. So it's a timing issue, and everything that comes in, let's say with a little bit of curveball, addressed at these negotiations will make it more difficult to come to a successful conclusion. So this is only one topic, but I wanted to raise it to you. Another thing I wanted to address today in our video update is new market mechanisms. Yesterday was the first contact group on new markets. It was quite a crowded room. A lot of people showed up, including the business community that is part of the NGO community, watching these international climate change negotiations and trying to bring their point across. And the point is, if we want to meet the climate change challenge, and if we want to really invest money in technology, innovation, and refurbishment or change of our energy infrastructure, we need the private sector involved in financing this change. At the moment, the private sector is not a party to these international negotiations. It only takes place between countries. So they're here as an official observer status, and of course, whenever they have a chance to look into an open meeting that addresses their concerns, they will be present. So they were yesterday. The negotiations on new market mechanisms are quite complicated. Although there was progress over the last 2 years since Copenhagen, it is still not clear which institution will regulate international markets, what is really the private sector participation, and how can you regulate and create incentives for the private sector to make progress here. And this was the kickoff meeting yesterday, so it was good to get a temperature and feel the vibe. What was very encouraging was a statement by Australia that pointed out that they will have a market system in place by 2015, based on current Australian climate regulation, that this market system must be linked to an international scheme. It must be linked to new market mechanisms, ideally under the Kyoto Protocol or the convention. So this was positive. And of course, as always, everyone is encouraging progress. But at the same time, in the first kickoff meeting, it was a lot of technical discussions. And we'll be moving into a drafting group where the business community will be excluded, will not be able to observe. And the countries will come together and exchange their ideas how this can be addressed. Also, what I want to speak to you about today is the clean development mechanisms. This is the first really well-functioning large-scale mechanism to include the private sector in financing technology transfer and sustainable development in developing countries, and it has been functioning now for many years. Over 3,500 projects have been registered, over 6,000 projects are in the pipeline, and substantive amount of money has been invested in developing countries on the basis of this mechanism. So I think one could say it has been a success, especially since this is the first mechanism of its kind, a private sector mechanism that is governed by a UN body. and that cuts across sovereignty issues and allows people from developing countries and private entities from developing countries to develop monies in projects from developed countries to invest monies in developing countries. The Clean Development Mechanism has been under some kind of criticism, but the private sector does like it because it is actually functioning. The big issues around the Clean Development Mechanisms here in Durban are its continuation in the absence of a commitment period 2 under the Kyoto Protocol. I personally take the view that there is compelling legal arguments that it can continue because it is set out to achieve 2 main goals, which is technology transfer and sustainable development. And since the Kyoto Protocol itself does not discontinue, only the commitment period 1 is expiring at the end of 2012, there is a mandate to continue this. I think there has been great progress and good work done by the CDM Executive Board, the body administering the system, and they have quite a wide mandate to operate it and a wide mandate to keep it functioning. With this mandate, they should be very well positioned to operate in the next years. That does not mean that the Clean Development Mechanism is not part of this political game. It is just another ball that is being thrown in the air and is being tossed around here as we sit and as we are in Durban, South Africa. However, I would expect that by the end of the next 2 weeks, the positions become more clear and that the CDM Executive Board is confident enough in their work and will send a strong signal to continue with the good projects. I hope you enjoyed today's update. If you have any questions about DLA Piper's Africa practice, our climate change practice, or the energy practice, please contact myself or my colleagues in London. And we're looking forward to see you tomorrow. Stay tuned.